Hmm. Maybe we should go longer now. People. Just a few more seconds.
Yeah, the anticipation.
Ooh, it builds. It's the fire is just a little fuel to the fire. The matches are getting struck. Drop
Yep.
them. All right. Fire it up, footballers. I am here live with Juan Pimiento. We have Guillermo Rivera, who will be joining us here in a short little bit. Welcome to the call, Juan. Second time is the charm for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always nice though. You get to practice one time, so his expectations are high though. Like we better not mess this up
Oh,
now.
man.
It's the second time around. But no, thanks for having me. I guess I was so good the first time I came here that I qualified for a second round. So
You had some high praise. You had some high praise. Peter Nowak was speaking with me, and he was just telling me he was very impressed by your knowledge, your acumen, and everything you were bringing to the conversation. He thought you kept me really grounded too.
Oh wow, that's some pretty high praise, man.
Which is helpful. But yeah, he really enjoyed you, Peter Nowak there, the ex Chicago Fire legend.
Yeah, shout out to Peter Wilt too, by the way.
Shout out to Peter Wilt. I'll bring him up in a little bit. Shout out to Peter Wilt. Brian Battle checking in, saying, "Hey all, what's going on, everybody? Just let us know how audio is. Hopefully it's okay. I'm on a whole new integrated system. YouTube has changed everything a couple days ago, so there might be a few kinks to work out in the new rollout. Just like the live stream features, it's a little weird. So let us know. Anyway, we'll dig right into it. Juan.
Yes.
Vela. Zlatan. Who do you choose?
Vela, because number one, because he's my guy. You got to stick with my fellow Latinos over here. You got to support when you can, and also too because he's the best player so far. He's the best player. The Fiat is outperforming the Ferrari right now. So I love Zlatan. I love him to death.
It's a Nova.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he's not a Nova.
Oh god, yeah, like Zlatan. I enjoyed it the one time I interviewed him. He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But no, Carlos Vela.
How ridiculous was he? Wasn't so arrogant. I mean, he's just like funny arrogant. It always seems.
Oh my god! Like, I don't know if you guys remember, but so it was the first time he came to Chicago, right, last year, and we were talking in the mix zone, and well, first of all, the guy is like 8 feet tall. And the guy, like, his voice is like super deep, so you're just like staring like at this presence. And I asked him, I was like, look, like the stadium, it's sold out. And when you were announced over the loudspeaker before the game, you got the biggest ovation. How did that make you feel? And he's just like, oh well, I heard this place never sells out, so I figured I would come. And I'm like, man, that was great. That's what I needed from Zlatan.
That's the quote.
Yeah, that's it. I just laughed.
Dude, that's like gold. That's journalist gold.
Oh my god, I'm like my first ever game that I covered, and I get this gem. That's gonna be a great time.
You should put that on your wall or wherever you get your man cave going, right?
I should, yeah.
For me, I would pick Zlatan. I just prefer him as a player. I like what he brings to the table, but that's not to say I feel like I'm acting more with my heart than maybe with my mind. Zlatan, although has done it at the higher levels for longer, is the main argument for Zlatan, where Vela here, 28, 29, now in MLS, didn't hang as long over in Europe, didn't hang out at the highest level. Yeah, he's dominating over here, but Zlatan dominated the best levels for years. I still think Zlatan's probably a top 15 striker in the world on his day.
Wow. I mean, you might be right. You might be right. I mean, there were so many questions about Vela coming in, about his commitment to soccer and, whether he was really coming to MLS to contribute and he was really going to invest himself to LAFC. And, luckily for them, because he was their first signing and really the face of the franchise, he's done it since coming in last year. He's been the main reason why the LAFC have been, in 2 years, gone from being just an expansion franchise to now being the class of MLS. So definitely. But Zlatan, no, you're right. Last year was incredible again against LAFC in his debut.
And it's interesting how both of them kind of are the face of their teams, and like the attitude of their team seems to be representative in both of them. Where you have Zlatan, the rebel, I will do it. I will drag them with me if I have to. Vela seems to have a more team-orientated mentality. Not to say that Zlatan's not team-orientated. His is like, hey, if you follow me, we'll get there. Where Vela's like, hey, we can all. I feel like he connects with everybody in a little bit more, in a different capacity than Zlatan. He seems to elevate his teammates a little bit better.
Yeah, he's more of a facilitator. Vela is definitely. I mean, Zlatan's always been like that. Honestly, he's always been the target. He's always been, the focus. He's always been the finisher, and it works. It works for him. Like you said, he still might be one of the best at what he does at his position, and for Vela, I feel like this is really like the Vela that we all kind of expected, and I'm pretty sure the Mexican fans have expected since coming through and going to Arsenal and all of that. So it's been great. But it's interesting. It's two different kinds of leadership, like you laid out, but they both work, in their own way.
And also, he's having a lot more success than Giovanni Dos Santos.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why, one Dos Santos is still here and the other one's not.
I think he's not has a contract with anybody yet, does he?
Gio?
Yeah.
He's back in Liga MX.
Oh, okay.
He's in Club America now. He actually just debuted last weekend and came on in the second half and kind of killed it.
Oh, wow.
An assist and a goal. So it looks like he's back to being motivated, which he kind of does at the beginning when he goes somewhere.
Yeah.
We'll see if it lasts, but... he's back. Back in Mexico, which he never played at. So
I got a couple other Mexico players I want to talk about, but I'll save them for later. Northwoods Dan checking in saying he'll take Vela. Vela. He's also not getting as suspended all the time and getting confused enough to walk into opposing locker rooms.
That is true. That is true.
Someone asked about that. Wait, what? Zlatan's walking into opposing team locker rooms?
Yeah, he did. I mean, he does whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Like, same thing when he came here. Like, he went out and sought out Schweinsteiger, and they got a great picture together, which I really like. I really want to get that picture somewhere.
And put the quote on. Put the quote on.
Yeah, like whoever took that picture, like, please, like, let us know, because I saw them take the picture by the tunnel at SeaGeek Stadium, and I'm like, man, what an image!
All right, podcasters. Anybody know the photography people? Spread the word. We need to find that picture. Schweinsteiger and Zlatan on the bench.
Yes.
We'll move on. Dries Mertens to MLS. Oh wait, you know what? I skipped something.
Yeah.
LAFC, best team in the league right now, killing it.
Oh yeah.
What are they doing? Yeah. What is happening there?
We'll make it quick.
Yeah,
it's no doubt.
Yeah, it's easy to pick. It's easy to pick apart. Bob Bradley, the reason for their success. Honestly, I wonder about what happens when Bob Bradley leaves LAFC, and if it'll fall apart similarly to like what happened in Atlanta.
We'll see. I mean, I just feel like LAFC, the big virtue of them, and I was talking, about this with some colleagues over this week, is that, with LAFC, as much as they have a guy like Vela, and you always need that one guy. The system is the virtue there, because they've had also their share of injuries. They've also had their share of failed acquisitions, like Andrew Horta came and left.
That was real quick and expensive.
Yeah, exactly, and they still got a lot of money for him, but the machine never slowed down. Same thing with Diomande. When he first came in, he was slowed down, and they still, again, the machine kept going. So that's the virtue of what they have. I think it's more on Bob Bradley. Like you said, can he sustain it for how long? When is it going to be the right time for him to go? And after that, then who's going to step in, to keep that going as much as they can, which is going to be a challenge as it is.
And where does Bob Bradley go from LAFC? To me, it seems like the next logical step is the U.S. men's national team take over for a struggling Berhalter who might be in a little over his head.
Yeah.
And he has a second go-around, and maybe he gets the U.S. a little farther with his experience.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, his stock hasn't been higher since leaving the national team to begin with. So yeah.
Who would you say? I mean, he's almost becoming an argument for one of the best U.S. coaches up there, Bruce Arena. And I mean, who are the top U.S. coaches
Today?
Of all time, maybe.
Oh, of all time? No, it's Bruce Arena.
Bruce Arena?
Like, domestically with the national team, there's no doubt. But Bradley
is approaching, I think.
Bradley's approaching it. Yeah, he's right there in second place.
Definitely.
And really, like after that, like it's kind of a big gap in my opinion.
Oh, and there's some up and comers. Not to speak, there's definitely quite a few up and comers.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Will Berhalter was supposed to be one of them, and we'll see how that ends up.
Jesse Marsh over at Red Bull, right?
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Porter.
Porter. We got Guillermo clocking in.
Yo.
Hey guys.
Guillermo Rivera clocking in from Fire Confidential and The Athletic. What is going on?
You guys tell me. What did I miss?
We were talking a little Zlatan Vela comparison and just having a little fun.
There you go.
Anyway, Guillermo, you gotta have some kind of memory of when Zlatan came last year to Chicago for the first time.
Yeah, he was his typical Zlatan self in the post game.
Yeah.
Made it all about himself and the crowd coming out to see him, and so yeah, I know a lot of people can either take or leave Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but I think MLS needs that kind of character, needs that type of guy. They need a bad guy, and he plays the bad guy very well. I think that's one of the things that Blanco did when he was here and did it very well. He was the bad guy, and MLS needs those personalities, needs those type of guys that draw some interest and make the game a little bit more colorful, and he certainly does that.
I totally agree. When I was speaking with Peter Nowak not too long ago on a recent podcast, awesome show, I was telling him the same thing, that the Fire need to adopt this bad boy image mentality and getting a Zlatan type of person, to be like the wild thing of MLS. I feel like if they could change their image in that capacity, it might help them.
Yeah, well, like the movie Scarface, everybody wants the bad guy.
Uh-huh.
The bad guy draws the attention.
I got a couple quick hits for us. Dries Mertens supposedly coming to NYCFC. I feel like that is a signing that is, if they get that, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous. He put up some pretty impressive numbers at Napoli and I think at PSG before. So, man, it looks like from what people are saying, it's a 2020 move. And I think he has a contract that runs at 2020, so that would be an insane move. That
he would tear up MLS.
All you can say about that. He would tear up MLS.
He would tear up MLS. Mo has since moved on since we've podcasted not too long ago. Mo's future with Atlanta, Mo Adams.
You want to take that one a while?
I mean,
it's unknown. I don't know. A lot of fans are high on him.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, he has Jeff Laurentowicz right now still around, and Eric Romet is still around. So, you can argue he's even deeper down the depth chart than he was here with the Fire. I mean, Laurentowicz is right up there in age, so I guess you kind of, I guess they're just kind of holding on for him to retire or for Remedi to be sold to make the jump, and then Mo Adams can kind of slide in. But right now, I don't know. It's kind of looking kind of difficult, which kind of makes me feel bad because I love the guy. I love watching him play. So we'll see. It's Atlanta, so at least you can trust them to figure something out for him. Hopefully.
Yeah, I thought Adams was a nice player. It was a little surprising to see them move him that quickly. You've got a younger guy and he takes up an international spot, but with a group that's the core that's all over 30, you would think you would like to have some members of the team going in looking ahead to 2020 with some youth and with some years ahead of them. I think just looking at the team that you've got now, you've got a rebuild ahead of you, and you would think that somebody like Adams, who was relatively inexpensive, would have been a guy that you would have liked to keep around. But
I want to dig into that rebuild here in a little bit, but I got a couple more MLS things to wrap up. Guttman finally gets officially traded to Cincinnati for some Gamtam. I guess that was always on the docket to be, but I don't know if he's had so much success in USL. Have you guys followed?
I haven't really followed what he's done at USL. I think Andrew Guttman wasn't going to play here. So they got what they could for him. I think getting a loan deal from Celtic so he can find out so they can find out what the kind of player he is at the MLS level. And I'm sure there's an option to buy because there always is an MLS. But we'll see. We'll see if the Fire were right about sort of not devaluing Guttman, but not rating him as highly as a lot of other people did.
What's interesting?
We'll get to see him at Cincinnati.
What's interesting is I saw Juan post something about a trade they were trying to trade Brandon Vincent, a couple of years ago before he retired.
Last year.
Yeah. So everybody always thought that Guttman was the heir apparent regardless. And then you hear that they were trying to trade Brandon Vincent. So we always wondering what was going on there. What was the plan?
I think maybe what I infer is that, that was the gamble. I think to me, and this is just, again, me speculating, like I mentioned on Twitter, that they were going to go all in on Andrew Guttman. Again, I don't know still why get rid of Brandon Vincent at the time, but I think maybe to me, they thought they had Guttman maybe secured. They thought they were going to be able to sign him, but it wasn't to be, and they ended up with neither at the end.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what really doesn't make sense because I don't think they really had a lot of intention to make Guttman that replacement for Vincent. So you're looking to move Vincent without a real replacement for him. And they had made a couple of different attempts to move Vincent, and I think he essentially shot down the move of Cincinnati. So you have to wonder what the thought process was at that time. I know you can change from year to year and what you're doing, but you go into this year and you don't have a left back either. So
until last week,
last week. I mean, you bring in Jonathan Borstein, who's I think 34. He'll be 35 soon, and he's a competent MLS left back at this point in his career. He's a guy that isn't going to hurt you there, and but again, he's going to be 35 years old starting next year, and you have to make a decision on what kind of team are you going to bring into Soldier Field and try to pump as the next or the evolution of the Chicago MLS franchise. Is Jonathan Bornstein going to be your guy for a year and then you move on again? You have to wonder what the process is going forward.
It seems questionable. Speaking of Soldier Field, a site of a recent MLS All-Star game, I saw on Juan's recent podcast that he had on Facebook. He was talking about the format and playing Atletico. We played Real Madrid when it was over here in Soldier Field, and wondering if it's time for it to change. Of course, that's always the talk. Is it time for us to change? It's time to stop bringing these big clubs and go conference versus conference, or go All-Stars of Liga MX versus All-Stars MLS. I would prefer All-Stars of Liga MX versus MLS if you're not getting a Real Madrid or a Barcelona. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I see Juan shaking his head there. I would agree with that. The MLS All-Stars versus Liga MX All-Stars would be a pretty big draw and a pretty interesting run. And that kind of levels the playing field a little bit. You've got an all-star team that's pretty much slapped together against another all-star team that's slapped together.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
These games the games are essentially just skills competitions. They're highlight show.
Glorified friendly.
Yeah, they're glorified friendly. So it doesn't mean a whole lot if MLS wins or for the European team wins. I think it is time to change it. I don't mind the East versus West either, but again, the All-Star games don't really mean a whole lot other than, the host city has a lot of fun. The media has a good run in wherever the host city is. But by the time the next game rolls around the following week, and the All-Star game's forgotten. So
it's true.
That's true. We're already looking ahead at next year's All-Star game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, the All-Star game is just what it is in every other league. It's just a glorified friendly like one.
And no other league, no other soccer league, of course, has one. They have, of course, their league. What is it? Like their best league 11 that they'll have it at the end of the year, but they don't have a legit all-star team.
Yeah, like that's what we talked about on our show on Friday. It's like, imagine if we had like in Europe, like a La Liga's best 11 against Premier League's best 11. Like,
it kind of would be awesome.
It would be
great. That would be cool. That would be great.
Yeah, or like a European best 11 versus like a South American, North American best 11. Like a FIFA style stuff. It would be tremendous. But I think here, I think with all the Liga MX, MLS stuff, the Leagues Cup, and all the the new relationship blossoming again, that's what it's looking like. I think it might be plausible that they might just make it Liga MX All Stars against MLS All Stars. Which like I agree with Guillermo on that. It will be a big draw for sure.
This almost
that's been bandied about for a while. I think Simon Borg at MLSsoccer.com brought that up years ago, and I think that is something they have considered, and I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen sometime soon anyway.
I think eventually, like, I think the goal, if it's that important, would be for it to be East versus West, or like, US against the world, which would be a really uneven game.
Get the top 16 leagues in the world, all send their all-stars. Have some rich billionaire fund this.
Exactly, yes. FIFA Ultimate Team come to life.
FIFA Ultimate, that's what you call it. The FIFA Ultimate Team Tournament or something like that. And it's got like the 16 top leagues. And of course, those are always changing, except for the top 5, basically.
Yeah,
right?
There you go. Just don't do a Club World Cup,
Screw the Club World Cup. This is way more enjoyable than the Club World Cup because of the randomness. Like you said, teams are getting thrown together last second. Some teams might even have familiarity. Oh, I was on the All-Star team last year. Oh, so was he.
Yeah. There you go.
I don't know. We'll move on. That was fun, though.
Yeah, we'll keep dreaming.
Guillermo, we were talking about how LAFC is like the team to beat in MLS. I don't know if you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious. And they're putting up ridiculous numbers, and unless and it's possible in MLS that you get into 1 or 2 game series and you stumble, but it certainly doesn't look like it at this point. I think they're too well coached, and there's too much talent on that team for them not to be considered the top contender for MLS Cup anyway. Going into this, the season's not over, but going into the postseason, they'll be the top, obviously the top contender.
If they are eliminated, that would be tragic. For their season.
MLS, so you never know.
Yeah, that's true. It's MLS. It's small margins, a league of very small margins.
Yeah, Seattle will get them. Don't worry.
Yeah, right.
And our last bit of MLS news here: Wayne Rooney officially going at the end of the season to Derby County to be a player coach. An unusual situation, to say the least. What do you guys think of A, that, and B, the player coach thing?
Like the old saying goes, happy wife, happy life, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's why he's leaving, supposedly.
Yeah.
Yep.
If your family's not happy with the move, and he's been in England his entire career, and family wants to go home, I guess DC, let him go home. Finish off the season, go into next year. But the one thing it does bring about is that now the DC, and I saw some rumors about Mesut Ozil.
Oh man,
Ozil to DC.
Yeah, and
or Balotelli to DC.
Balotelli, yeah, but DC is going to have to go in and make the move now. So you've got 2 of the sort of flagships franchises in MLS, DC and the Fire, both going into 2020, essentially looking to revamp the most important parts or most important pieces of their lineup and of their roster. You have to imagine that the Fire will be making changes to their DPs, and looks like DC is going to be as well. So could be an interesting January in MLS.
Ooh, we shall see. I think let's slip into the Fire. All right, there's so much to dig into. What and everybody's asking questions. Oh, and there was a great comment. Rooney was tired of living in Quincy Amarikwa's shadow. So that's why.
Jorge Jaimes, shout out. That's the comment of the night right there.
Guillermo's output is a testament to local fans, and Juan is a treasured, passionate voice in the dearth of local critical soccer content. That's from Brian Battle.
Man. Thank you.
He's also said, let's take a moment to acknowledge Juan and Guillermo, 2 guys that are invaluable to the Chicago soccer fandom that we should all treasure. Oh, that was his first part, and the second part I read out of order.
Thank you.
Also, thank you. Absolutely, you guys. You guys are a treasure. It's fantastic. Thank you both for coming on the podcast. I'm always honored when you guys come on the podcast. I always treasure the experience when I have special guests like you guys. Also, I saw a type F in the chat for Mo Adams, which is a funny meme. Moving back to the Fire. What was this season? It's not over. We have 10 games? No, 9 games left for the Fire. And they're only 10 points behind the third place team, New York Red Bulls. They're sitting in 10th place.
That's insane, man. That is insane.
That's how the league of small margins.
That's the beauty of MLS is that no
Yeah.
matter how bad you are, at some point, they're going to still be mathematically alive in October because of MLS and the way that it's structured.
12 points off of second place, Atlanta United. So that's 4 wins in a row, assuming Atlanta would lose 4 in a row. But
when you look at the reality, they have to win more than the Houston road game. They essentially have to run the table of the rest of their home games.
They have to.
And they've got to jump over teams. So it's not real likely. I mean, they're still alive. But when you look at it realistically, it's just considering they've won, one road game in the last year plus, you have to figure that the year is not going to go anywhere near what they intended to be at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel like, and it's kind of hard to summarize like really in one part because there's so many aspects to it. But
yeah.
But the one thing I would say at this point, and like Guillermo mentioned the Houston game, I feel like we're at this point now. This has been the season of asking ourselves every single time, now what? Like this team has been stuck all season in one gear. And just when you think that they're going to get it going, just when you think that the investment is going to finally pay off in terms of results and in terms of play, it always comes back. It's always one step forward, 2 steps backwards. And, this past 2 months, it's been like 3 or 4 steps backwards. And now here we are. They won a game last weekend. They're still mathematically in it. And here comes Montreal. And I'm asking myself, okay, you won. Great. First road win, like Guillermo said, this season in a while.
Pauno has like less than 10 road wins, I think, in his career. So it's like, yeah.
That's pretty amazing
that's
too.
Gnarly.
And he's like Paunovic has been saying, he's been always calling for something to be the spark.
Yeah. He's selling. He's always selling that.
Yeah, whether it was, Nico Gaitan when he came in, the missing piece he was billed as. Him and Nelson said it. Also, specific victories, the Atlanta win also here at home.
New England win way back before then.
Exactly. Yeah. Or a winning streak. He always called for a winning streak. He said winning streak is the one thing that's going to, propel us and kind of launch us to the next level.
Their 2-game winning streak. We got it.
and we're still waiting. And the team's still waiting. And it's just stuck in this constant, like, neutral mode. And it can never get into the right gear and really take off for the talent that they have, because they have the talent.
I'm sure it's been frustrating for them because, like Juan said, there is talent on that team, and they should be better than where they're at right now, particularly offensively. But they have pieces that they just haven't figured out how to mesh, either whether it's a technical staff or it's the ability of the players that just aren't a good mix. And maybe that's the case at this point. And they've got Katai, who as a designated player, who I know Peter Nowak in your podcast mentioned him as one of the I think maybe the top 5 difference makers in MLS. And
yeah.
I think I'll do respect to Peter. I think that might be a little bit of a stretch. But,
yeah.
Oh, let's get into this. Maybe Katai versus Gaitan. Is that pretty much what you guys are thinking?
That's a good question because Gaitan has put up some decent numbers, but he hasn't been quite that difference maker that I thought he was. I mean, a lot of other people thought he was going to be. He does look a little slow at times. Looks like he's lagging behind a little bit, but he's had some injuries as well. On the other hand, he's put up some numbers, and when they have played well, he has been the guy to make it go. You have to wonder there. You have to look at how his game meshes with Katai, because it really doesn't seem to.
4 goals, 4 assists for Katai, 4 goals, 9 assists for Gaitan.
Yeah, I'll take the latter. Definitely. And I think with and again I would go with Gaitan, because to me since he's been here, and even in the first games where he was still working his way fitness wise, working his his way into the city, adapting to the team, his teammates, the language and everything, you still saw flashes of him really being a different player, a guy who this team doesn't really had. at least judging from last year or even 2017, and a guy who can make you like a.
Uh-oh. I lost your audio. You're back. You're back. We lost your audio for a second there, Juan. You're back.
He's frozen again.
Good. Maybe it's maybe it's a Katai fan that's
sabotaging. It's either him or Nelson pressing F.
Yeah, I mean, Katai is an exciting player to watch, and
absolutely,
he's probably one of the more dynamic players in the league. But again, you have to produce, and if you're going to carry the designated player spot, you have to expect more from those guys. You have to expect more than 4 goals, 4 assists. You have to expect more than launching shots from 25, 30 yards out whenever there's a glimpse of an opportunity and 2 open teammates on either side of you.
And also more consistency, because I think the one thing with Katai that I find it frustrating is a lot of times he just disappears.
Yes.
And when he's on, he's brilliant.
Right.
But I don't feel like Gaitan has been like that, aside from the times when he's been just tired, or he's been injured. And I feel like Gaitan I can rely more on him being present, being active, consistent in the build of play, exactly, being a presence, facilitating for his teammates. Again, without downplaying Katai, because again, I think when he's on, he's great.
Yeah,
he's
phenomenal.
won the fire many games.
He's a phenomenal 1v1 player, but once you get by the one, you've got to figure out what to do with him.
I call him the Patrick Kane of MLS, because he's Patrick Kane could take on guys one-on-one. People are afraid to do that, to take him on. Defenses respect him. But that said, there's the mental things that we've talked about. We'll move on from the Gaitan Katai stuff. What was this season? Why does it feel squandered right now? Like it's a league of very tight margins. We're still in the playoff hunt, but it just feels wasted right now for the amount of talent that we had. And we have a coach that at some point I feel like lied to us, because he was the one who, you have this on paper. One of you guys had the quote, "If you give me the horses, I can win."
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And that's Paunovic. We gave him the horses.
It feels like it's squandered, because that's exactly what it has been. It's just another squandered season. When Rodriguez came in, touting kind of a 3-4 year plan, they're at the point now where they should be a competitive team, and they should be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, and they're nowhere near it. I think the most disturbing part is that the core of this team, you're really hard pressed to identify what the core of this team is going to be going forward. Schweinsteiger, McCarty, Nikolic.
McCarty's got to be gone, by the way. I mean,
they're all up in their middle 30s, and they could be gone. So what exactly is your core in 2019, 4 years into your program? It's hard to identify, and I think that's the most disturbing part about what the position they're in now.
Yeah, I mean, I would just throw in again, just kind of reinforcing what Guillermo said. The third highest payroll in the league, players who have been proven in MLS and in Europe. That's, again, we talked about it, last time around when I was on, that last year, you can look at the roster and say, okay, the roster is really inferior. Nelson Rodriguez kind of handed Paunovic a pretty bad hand. This year, though, that's not the case at all. And if anything, the one thing which was that was addressed, and a lot of players came in. The bench has more options. The defense has more options, which is always an Achilles heel. Even goalkeepers, they double down on goalkeepers, and it's the same thing. So it's really that. It's just a very simple input-output relation that when it comes to investment and results, it's just the disparity is alarming.
Yeah, and from the ownership standpoint, people have complained in the past, but they have spent some money on first-team salaries in the last couple of years. This year, they've got 3 DPs, and like Juan said, one of the higher salaried rosters in the league, and the results that they've got in comparison to the money they've spent on first team this year is just it's inexcusable.
I have the list, and this is not perfect. of like who's here and whose contracts and all that stuff. Kronholm signed till 2021. Kapeloff here till 2021. Schweinsteiger probably gone.
They've got 9 guys under contract for 2020, at least guaranteed for right now.
Right. Frankowski, Marcelo, who might be on his way out to Greece, Gutjar, Herbers, Lillard, Reynolds, and Slolina.
Well, yeah.
So those are like the people that I see locked up. Everybody else seems to be expiring to some degree or has some sort of option.
That's pretty accurate. And there's a lot of decisions to be made here. And now with one day left in the transfer window, you have to wonder: do you try to move some of these guys because you're not going to pick up their options at the end of the year? And if you do pick up their options, what's the plan for 2020? Do you bring back Dax McCarty? Do you bring back Alexander Katai, Nicholas Gaitan? Do you move them now and at least try to get something? I know Nelson mentioned his last roundtable that sort of insulted by the offers he was receiving for Katai in the transfer window, but
Yep.
He may not be here next year. Get something for him, and a couple of weeks ago he said they were open for business, and what they've been able to do is move Mo Adams and move the rights to Gutjar. So,
they moved Gutjar's rights?
I'm sorry, not Gutjar.
Guttman.
The other home group. Yeah, Guttman. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Sorry to scare you there.
So yeah, but it's just this whole thing seems like a mess, and I go back to the idea of like, whose team was this? Was this Hauptman's team? I don't really feel like it. Is this Paunovic's team? It was supposed to be. To me, it really feels like it was Nelson's team that failed. And I'm not. Yeah, you know what I mean? And I feel like I'll just finish my thought here. I feel like Nelson gave Paunovic the horses. He gave him the carriage, but the carriage was missing the back 2 wheels, and he expected him to get from Chicago to Baton Rouge and back again without 2 wheels on the back. But he's got 6 horses. Paunovic, you got the horse, you got the carriage. I know you don't have the wheels, but hey, figure it out. And Paunovic wasn't a good enough, coach to figure that out. There's coaches out there that can take that and make some wheels happen. Paunovic couldn't do that. And I don't know if that's a knock on Paunovic or if that's a knock on Nelson for giving him that example.
Yeah, I think it's on both to an extent. I mean, I think.
No, Juan, we lost him again.
Again? My God.
Oh, you're back. It only drops
okay.
For a second. It seems it's the Wi-Fi.
No, I was just saying that it's like the analogy is perfect because it is on both. Because one provides the resources and one provides the blueprint and the players, and the other one is the one who puts the product on the field and is supposed to put those pieces together. But ultimately, the buck stops with Nelson because he's the GM.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And a team, a roster composition, and its output, it always goes back to the general manager. Again, not completely because Paunovic is the one coaching this team, and Paunovic has been the one always who Nelson has trusted publicly, has backed them all this time. But again, I think the buck always stops with Nelson Rodriguez ultimately. So, win or lose, it's on him. It's always going to be on him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously, it's professional sports. The name of the game is winning, and the first guy in the line of fire is usually the coach. But like Juan says, ultimately, this is Nelson's team. This is the program that he's put together, and he's had 4 years to do it. And really, they've got half a year in 2017 to show for it, and 1 playoff loss. I mean, that's the fact.
It's not much.
Yeah, it's really not much. And now moving into sort of a pivotal year, or not sort of, it is a pivotal year.
It's the most pivotal year for their organization, just like 1998 was for them in a way.
Yeah.
It's the relaunch.
You can't go into 2020 with this roster. You can't do it. So they've got a lot of big decisions to make here. And I think Rodriguez has got to decide whether or not he still believes that Paunovic is the guy to lead whoever is on that team in 2020.
And is Nelson the guy? I mean, they just brought in Lolla. Lola.
Lolla, yeah.
Lolla from Louisville. And what was that Pauno's replacement, or is that guy just here to kind of bring culture?
Yeah.
Because it seems like it could be a Pauno replacement in-house, kind of like Joel Quenneville watching over the boards watching Dennis Savard's practice at the Blackhawks. Joel Quenneville took over and then led the Blackhawks to 3 championships.
Yeah,
but this guy's, of course, not Joel Quenneville. He's a college coach that is proven.
Yeah, but there are questions there as well. I mean, obviously, you have to wonder what Lala's real role is, what chief culture officer seems like a made-up title for the sake of a title to bring in a guy as sort of a consultant, as kind of a coach in the waiting. But there are questions with him as well, and he's been successful at Akron, successful at Louisville. But again, this is the most pivotal off season in the history of the franchise, probably since '98. And are you going to entrust that to a college coach who has even less experience on the MLS and professional level than Paunovic did coming in? And that seems to be one of the issues with that coaching decision. Do you want to have somebody with a little more experience? And if you're going to bring in veteran players of the stature of Bastian Schweinsteiger, are you going to entrust that to an unproven college coach? There's a lot of questions with this, with the Ken Lolla relationship here. I think at this point, he's essentially a consultant. He's a guy that's sort of in Rodriguez's circle, and he's and I think Juan brought this up last Friday, and I think Sam and Paul echoed it in their report this past weekend that he's been there for about 2 weeks now, watching practices, adding notes to the technical staff, and this is not a guy that the Paunovic's technical staff brought in to kind of oversee them. This is a guy that Nelson brought in to help guide the technical staff.
That's got to make you nervous if you're Paunovic.
Yeah, that can be a good feeling. And if you're a let's say they don't decide to renew Paunovic and they let him go and they bring in another coach, do you want to come in a situation where Ken Lolla is sitting there as sort of a advisor to the general manager and as your potential replacement? So there's a lot of history or a mystery in the hierarchy here that needs to be ironed out before 2020 takes place.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the first thing he's got to take the job, number one.
Right.
Because I feel like right now it's Ken Lolla hasn't even accepted or denied the job.
Yep.
So I mean,
so he's not even getting paid right now for compiling all these reports.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, that must be, well, that's a great gig. I mean, I'll do it for less. Definitely. But yeah, no, there's just so many questions. Like, again, like, what is a chief culture officer? Like, what exactly does that mean? Like, is he is gonna be like a life coach? Is he gonna be just like a speaker, that's what he's been doing, up until this point since leaving Louisville, is just kind of going around and doing speaking engagements and stuff like that. So, and again, like, how is that going to fit in? Like Guillermo said, if you're Paunovic or anyone, how are you going to feel about this guy being in your shadow, judging your work all the time, and then talking to your players, and then talking to to the academy players who are trying to come up?
Right.
I don't know. Like it's just there's just so much sketchiness about this that it remains unresolved. And there was speculation about okay, is he like the guy who could replace Pauno if Pauno is not there, because of the link between Nelson and Lolla, that they go way back. And I mean, I don't know. Again,
if this was Tab Ramos, it'd be a lot more clear. If that was Tab Ramos sitting in the seats, I think we'd all be like, maybe he isn't there to replace him. Maybe Nelson has a very good relationship with the University of Louisville or something like that, wherever this guy comes from.
All right, we haven't heard Nelson's explanation of what he sees for the chief culture officer. So maybe he's. Let's listen to his explanation and see if it makes sense. We're speculating here, and it seems a little bit strange from from our perspective from the outside looking in. But I'm sure that the next roundtable or whenever Nelson's next availability is, we'll have a chance to ask him about Ken Lolla and what his role is.
Lolla is like the Bobs in Office Space. It makes no sense. Either fire the coach. This is a comment. Either fire the coach or don't. It feels like offloading responsibility without taking accountability for signing Pauno to a long-term contract. And I think that's a great comment right there.
I mean, the Bob's in Office Space is fantastic.
Yes, definitely.
Both from Northwoods.
Trust me, I think it's gonna. You wouldn't find it hard pressed for Nelson to really admit any fault with Pauno, because Nelson he's defended him so many times. Every round table he's been asked, he's always defended Pauno as his guy. And I like for him to just turn around and really, put any blame on him or kind of throw him under the bus at this point, I don't see it happening, honestly. So
this scenario seems perfect. Like, yeah, I'll bring in Lolla, and Lolla say he's not good enough, and then I could say, oh, he's not good enough. Lolla said so.
Well, I mean, they signed him to a new contract in this past offseason, so he's got another guaranteed year. But again, and again, like Juan said, I don't expect Nelson to throw him under the bus when we ask about him. That's not what he's going to do. But at some point, he's got to really take a hard look at whether or not he still believes, like I said before, that he is the guy to continue leading this team. I think part of that is that this is his first coaching hire, and it reflects on Nelson at this point. So, as a professional general manager in the sports business, I think the rule of thumb is that you usually get two coaches, and then you're on the hot seat. So, you go to that second coach, and all of a sudden, things haven't changed. Now, more fingers are pointing at Nelson.
Yeah.
What were the tactics and formations and general philosophy that we saw on display this year by Paunovic? What were his tactics? What were his formations? We saw a lot. We saw what was his philosophy. It's the whole. We're here. I feel like we're 4 years into this guy, and I have an easier time finding Waldo.
This question,
right?
though, man. This questions. Oh my God.
That's part of the problem is that there is no real established style of formation or you don't know what team the Fire are. There could be a different team from week to week. For the style of play is kind of as you always talked about the base 4-2-3-1, but it's at one point this year they had success with 3-5-2, had an injury or two, and they went away from that. So I think that is part of the issue. Part of the frustration is that they haven't settled on a style, haven't settled on a set lineup that they can rely on, and that's I think that's on Paunovic. But man, it's a can of worms. Nothing has gone right this year.
So what happens when you bake a cake is you put together a whole bunch of ingredients and the cake rises, right? This cake was just water. It never, and it was missing eggs. It got some flour, but the whole bit of ingredients never combined to make something that would be able to rise from the pan and create a delicious meal to watch.
It's just they throw in salt and they throw in I don't know,
fish. Fish guts.
Exactly. They added more flour or less. It's been pretty much like that. I can't either.
It retained its shape, and which means it just never grew out of it and grew into something better.
Exactly, and we can only go off of what Pauno has said about it, and we know that he said it before. He tries to play a certain idea. He's kind of hinted at possession and things like that. He says that that the important thing is that there's an idea and a common idea throughout the roster from 1 to 23. But again, like Guillermo said, when you change that from one game to another, then what is the idea? Is the idea then, like he said also in the past, is just purely adjusting to the opponent? Is the Fire just adjusting to what the opponent has to offer? Can we say that's the idea? Can Pauno say that's the idea? But he's kind of also said both of these things. So yeah, it's like you said, like it's just not. It's a can of worms, like Guillermo said. It's really unclear. And like we talked about with LAFC, like I said before, it's winning, losing, or drawing with the system, with an idea.
With an idea. They're going down with their philosophy, ride or die.
And it's luckily for them, and credit to them, it's worked. Again, through injuries, through players going to the Gold Cup, through players coming in and out in the transfer market. It's always the same idea, they know every player that comes in, that steps into a spot, they know what their role is, and they know exactly what they're trying to do. Bob Bradley makes it very clear what he wants out of every player, out of the team, and you see the results. And again, that's 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3. That's those are just numbers. At the end of the day, what matters is can the players really interpret and have a clear idea when they step onto the field? Okay, what is exactly expected out of me, and what is expected out of those around me, so we can go and get out on the field, whoever it is, no matter the opponent, and play to what we want to play and what we know to play. And the Fire they never really establish that.
Right.
What do the best coaches in MLS have? Consistency in their approach, their tactics. I mean, when you look at the Sporting Kansas City guys, the Bearhalters, the Bradleys, the Tata Martinos, these guys aren't deviating week to week to deal with the opponent. They're saying, hey, they'll have to deal with us. And Paunovic has not installed that confidence in his players or in his system. His system he's so not confident in his system that he has to be like, oh, we're changing it this week to this to combat their stuff. And he's confident in his ability to nullify, but not in his ability to raise his own team to the next level offensively or to go at it.
Yeah, and all of that is valid. He's
always say this with care. We're not trying to offend Paunovic. We like the guy. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Well, but he came in and wanted to, I guess, stated his preferred style of play, and he wanted to play out of the back. And I don't know how viable that really is in MLS, where you've got really different levels of players on the field at the same time. And you go into this year, and Marcelo and Jorge Corrales are your left-sided defense. So Marcelo is, he's been a bust. No other word for it. And Jorge Corrales.
I can't believe a Greek team wants to take him.
Yeah, well, he still hears. But Corrales, Corrales is he's a serviceable MLS bench player, maybe even a USL player.
Yes. He's a better USL player, serviceable MLS.
Yeah, and you're not going to you're not a playoff team with Jorge Corrales playing 90 minutes, 34 games a year.
And right back, that's what I was talking about. Those two wheels.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kappelhoff's been serviceable at right back, but again, is he a better center back? Is Bastian Schweinsteiger, who I think at the beginning of this year was one of the top center backs in the league, but as you can see, as the year worn on, Bastian Schweinsteiger is not a center back. He showed it last year. He just isn't. He's not.
He's just not.
He can get by there for good portions of the season, but you want to spend $6 million for a center back who is not the best center back in MLS? No.
I was talking about this with Juan last time we had Juan on. It's just like, is Basti even in the top 15 of center backs for MLS? When you really do the analysis, and if you were building your team, I bet you could find 15 center backs you would take over Bastian Schweinsteiger, because he's not a center back. He's just not. Yeah. He doesn't have the skill set, and he's better suited elsewhere. But that said, where is he now suited for? And is this the coach that can get him there? I don't know.
All good questions.
We'll leave those rhetorical.
Yeah.
Stephen Cleveland was doing well in USL. I don't know if anybody else has been doing well down there. I don't know if you guys know.
Well, they haven't. The guys that they've sort of moved back and forth between USL haven't stayed down there very long. Lillard is back up. Cleveland's playing, but they really haven't used USL to the extent where it should be used. That's another a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
But
Not taking advantage of the sources that are available to
Yeah.
them.
Exactly. I think the other guy I think too is Elliot Collier.
Yep.
yeah, he's
Who's,
played well. Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
he's been there the entire time. He's kind of been forgotten about, and
Yep.
he's been playing. He's been scoring some goals. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't think he would. I don't think he's an MLS player either.
That's right.
And if you want to go, a step further, look at a guy like Jon Baquero, who, they got rid of last year, and now he's back. He's in USL now. He couldn't even make it in Toronto.
Our buddy Jiggly's always haranguing that player and lamenting his trade away for nothing for for Hasler, who was also punted
no
away
longer here
for nothing. Yeah. But Juan dropped this news that the Fire were seeking a defensive midfielder, a prime target, and that's what made me think. I know you guys can't speak too much about this, but to me that makes it sound like Dax is all but gone for next season. And I wondered who would be coming in, and I was running the numbers. I'm like, oh, Nemanja Matic? I don't think Hauptman's going to spend 30 million, 40 million on Nemanja Matic. And then I read down, I'm like, oh, Lucas Biglia. Wasn't he linked at the Fire? I thought he was linked to MLS at some point, but he's similar age to Andres Guardado, who was the other third one. Biglia comes in about 7 million, 6 million. And Guardado is about 5 million, 6 million in transfer market value. Take it for what you will. And all three of those guys are all out of contract come 2020. So not this year, next year. And to hear you talking about a center defensive mid, that really makes me think, I wonder if Guardado is on the docket. And when you look at the MLS, when you look at the Mexican national team, or the best Mexican players of who's coming and who's possibly coming to MLS now, the only candidate is really Guardado. I think Moreno is still over there. Herrera just signed a contract with Atletico Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think Ochoa
Chicharito. I guess
Ochoa just went back to Club America.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm.
So Chicharito and Guardado and maybe even Ochoa seemed like possible candidates to come over to MLS. And what are the chances for the Chicago Fire landing any of those three guys?
I mean, I think, well, first, the impression that I got from that information is that it might have been more just an option for a guy to take Mo Adams' spot. So perhaps not like a DP level player.
Okay.
Or just basically be maybe a younger guy who can be, maybe, could still be kind of the succession plan after Dax. But I didn't get the impression that it was a DP level guy. It could be. Again, I'm not really sure.
Right.
But I mean, it may be. My question would just be, again, if you got Dax, who again is 33, 34. Guardado, I think it will be a great signing. Of course,
32, I think.
Yeah, he still plays at a pretty high level over in Europe. With Betis. Of course, the Mexican aspect of it with the crowd will be great as well. But if you make that signing, then okay, how much is it? How much are you really removing yourself from what you have now with Dax? I don't know, because I feel like, and this is my opinion, if you're really gonna have a succession plan with Dax, I would go with something that's a little bit longer term. I mean, and Guardado could be that guy. He could play until his 35, 6, 7, 8. Who knows? But and going back to the original point, like Guillermo said, why give up Mo Adams? It just seemed like he was, to me, the most logical choice. He was in house. He's young. There's still things in his game he has to develop. But you already had the guy, and they got rid of him. So I don't know. I that's kind of like where I got that information.
Mm-hmm.
My impression was from getting the information is that maybe it was more along those lines. But who knows? I mean, maybe within the next 24 hours we'll find out. But the other thing too is that it does seem pretty unlikely that it's going to happen. The Fire really never got any traction, and they've asked multiple European clubs. They inquired at least on different players, and nothing really got off the ground. So it's looking pretty unlikely at this point.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they've got 3 DPs, so something substantial has to happen with Nikolic or Katai in order to bring somebody of any stature in.
And if they were trying to trade Katai and they're getting back bad offers,
Yeah,
so
$50,000 in allocation money and a draft pick. Yeah, I mean, Guardado would be fantastic in MLS. He still would be. They've had some interest in him in the past, but I don't get the sense that he's looking to move to MLS at this point, at least from what I've seen out of him. Chicharito, of course, would be the big name, the big attraction. But again, from what I've seen from him, he doesn't sound like he's ready to move to MLS at this point. So
he should be.
He should. Well, yeah. I mean, Chicharito is a big name, but without a team around him, he'll be a big name, but without a team around him, he'll draw some big crowds at Soldier Field. He'll generate some interest in local media and the Mexican population in Chicago.
Oh yeah.
But without a team around him, you're going to get into July, August, September at Soldier Field, and it's going to be business as usual. Chicharito's not going to carry the team.
You got to build the team around him. You got to give him talent, and he's not. He can't be your main striker. He's a secondary striker.
All of those things.
Yeah.
But I do think if you built the team around Chicharito, if you were able to bring him in next year and you're able to put that stamp on you and you manage to build around this guy, you give him someone creative to work with, you give him a striking partner, Sapong might be a legitimate striking partner up there because he's got that big, he's huge. He should be able to do something like that. And maybe he could mesh with Chicharito, but if you could bring in anybody, Chicharito, Ochoa, or Guardado for next season, who do you bring in?
Ochoa would be fantastic in MLS also. If one of those three, I would go with Guardado.
Okay, I'll go Chicharito. I think just because I think the Nikolic thing is going to get resolved, and he's probably going to go. So I think I think the bigger hole would have to be filled, and Chicharito makes the most sense. But I think I'll throw into that dynamic. I think James, you mentioned Sapong. But let's not forget too, like if you talk about creative guys, Gaitan's future is also up in the air.
True.
And if let's not forget either that if he is to come back to the Fire, he's gonna command DP money, most likely, or he's not gonna stay. So that's another monkey wrench into this whole dynamic that's gonna happen this winter. And if like you said, if you want to bring a guy like a Guardado, like any of those guys. You want a guy like Gaitan, or someone like of his characteristics to be, the facilitator for everybody. And that's not for certain. So, again, just we can go down the list of all the things that are question marks that could factor into next year and beyond.
Playoffs. How the heck can us three right now? Let's hop in the tank. All right, guys, we're in the think tank. How can Paunovic channel us, listen to us? How can we make a run here? What do we need to do here? What does Paunovic need to change? If we could take control and just give him a couple pointers, or kindly pointers. Start Sapong. I think it starts with starting Sapong over Nikolic.
Yeah, well, I think starting Nikolic and Sapong doesn't really work. I think their games just don't lend themselves to each other. So I think I like what I've seen out of Sapong this year. Nikolic doesn't seem to fit the type of game that they want to play anymore. He was huge his first year with the Golden Boot. He scored last year as well, but he's a guy that needs a good team around him. There's some talent around him, but it's not a good team. I think CJ Sapong fits in better with Katai and Gaitan, Mihalovic, Frankowski, if they ever figure out how to properly use him. That's a team that is pretty dynamic and should be able to score some goals in MLS. They just haven't been able to.
It sounds like we have a coach who doesn't know how to use all of his tools. I mean, that's a lot of coaches. A lot of coaches don't know how to make the best of what's given them. And, but we're at the Chicago Fire. This is a professional level organization. This is the MLS. They're supposed to be winning the league. And you know what? They're at a place where they can cut bait and bring in a guy who and try and experiment with a new guy who can. And the question is, why are they so reluctant to? What is the reason? It makes no sense.
Yeah, well, that's the question. that's the question. And, only Nelson has that answer. I think maybe other than the fact that, again, that it's his guy. Is the guy that he brought in with him, is the guy who he's trusted, and is the guy who has helped them bring a lot of these players also, recruiting wise, but only he knows the real answer to this. As far as the playoffs, I see Dan making the comment that I look pain. It's just because I'm trying to figure it out.
It's hard.
It's hard because, again, at this point, after what we've seen recently, especially, what is there that I can pick from that I can say with full trust, okay, this is where the Fire can go, or this is where they can resort to make a run, because it's not just up to them, by the way. It's up to New England, it's up to Montreal, it's up to Orlando, it's up to all those teams around the red line to fall. It's not just the Fire climbing up, it's up to those teams to stumble enough for the Fire to sneak back in. So I think right now, really the main part, I would say, is just confidence from everybody, from Paunovic to the players, which is what you and I, James, talked about last time. Is to me, there's just a feeling of lack of confidence, of players just kind of being disoriented right now, and a lot of them, again, instead of trying to to make the right move or make the bold move on the field, is about not making the wrong move and making a mistake.
Confidence comes from the coach. That's happened when the coach is having press conferences to start off saying teams like Cincinnati and Columbus are are great opponents and are going to be hard games. That's sending a message to your team that we can't barely beat last place teams, and this is going to be a struggle. What kind of message is that sending to your team?
But you've got a mostly veteran team with a lot of guys who have played a lot of minutes in MLS and across different countries and leagues throughout the world. So you have to expect that your players are going to be able to carry confidence, and they're going to be able to go into games thinking they can beat Cincinnati and thinking they can beat the dregs of MLS at home, and yet they don't. So the players have some responsibility here as well. But it's the old adage is that it's easier to change a coach than to change 18 players. But looking at what do you do to make the playoffs, they've played one more game than just about every team that's ahead of them. So that adds another wrench into. They've got to win at least 7 of the 9 games to get into
that's it.
To get into the 7th spot, and how realistic is that?
It's not. We could basically almost write them off now, and it's gotten to the point where we could start looking ahead at the future and wondering what this team's going to look like, because this season's starting. Unfortunately,
I guarantee
logic is saying that they're pretty much done.
I guarantee you, sometime between now and the end of October, they'll be within 4 points of the 7th spot.
Yeah, but James, think about what you just said, and think about the way this show has been laid out. How long have we been in the show now? And now we're talking about the standings. We've been talking the whole time about the future. We've been talking the whole time about the.
We're an hour and 7 minutes in about.
Exactly, that is the tale of the season. That is the tale of where we at now. Where I think, to me, I don't, if you ask me now, I don't see the Fire making a run. I think, to me, the Fire, even if they get close, to me, I think the season is already done.
It's squandered,
unfortunately, and and hence why here we are, the 3 of us and the people in chat, and most the fan base is already looking ahead to something else that is still uncertain and looking beyond the season. So could they do it? Of course, like we said before, it's MLS. I mean,
anything can happen.
They can pull a Seattle, on a short term and make a run, but I don't see where they turn to, and I don't trust the team to figure it out in time, at least, or consistently enough to really pull a run off at this point.
And how does that instill confidence in your fans and your team when you're bringing back the same stewards that have now are going to have their 5th go at the apple tree, and the best that they could do was 4 rotten apples and 1 good apple. They had 1 good apple, but they never took home a bushel. Most of the apples that they brought home were either rotten or worm infested for most of the other years. The one year that they were able to bring home a good apple, yeah, they got us 1, but it wasn't the bushel. It's just how many more picks of the apple tree do you got to let these guys have, and to let them prove that they're not good enough to pick at the apple tree compared to the other people who are picking at the same damn apple tree.
Change the name, problem solved.
Right, change name, problem solved. Man, it makes no sense. By the way, shout out to the people in the chat. Smash that like button for this. For Guillermo coming on, for Juan coming on. Thank you guys so much. We're not quite done yet, but I just want to say that. Smash the like button for everybody. Follow these guys on Twitter. Support The Athletic. Support Juan over at what, Hoy? I know you're doing several things.
A lot there. There's a lot. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Hoy, which is at Hoy Media. That's HOY, which is the Tribune's Spanish newspaper, and then Second City Soccer,
which is your venture.
Yes, and me, of course, at Pimiento Football too.
I'll make sure I'll have all this stuff in the description, of course, as usual. And of course, we got Guillermo over at The Athletic, and he also does a couple dalliances over at Fire Confidential.
It's still there.
You and Marty holding it down. Marty was supposed to be on here tonight. I tried to get him, but he couldn't make it, unfortunately.
Bobo probably didn't give him permission.
Might have been. Maybe needed to take him for a walk. Juanfran did not end up in Chicago. Yeah. Color me not surprised.
I don't know what sense it would have made to bring in a 35-year-old right back on a 2-year deal when you're going into Soldier Field next year. Is that the tack that you want to represent? You're going to fill your team with 35-year-old internationals that are going to be around for another year, and it doesn't. That to me never made any sense to begin with. I don't know how serious those talks were at any point, but they're probably better off that he went back to Brazil.
Yeah, I was telling Juan that they felt like we were getting Quintero'd again.
Yeah, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, I mean that's the Quintero, like you can make like a soap opera.
Yeah.
That whole situation. No, I agree with Guillermo though. Yeah, like with the Juanfran stuff, like at first glance, it's like, oh wow, yeah, like they need a right back. He's an experienced right back, sure, but again, for one, like Guillermo said, like long term, how productive would that move have been, and a move that wouldn't have been cheap at all,
right?
Either. And number two, how much of a difference would it have really made now, really, this season? Again, there's a hole at right back, and that's pretty obvious from the beginning. But
and how many of these 9 games is he going to play?
Exactly. But what can he really do? Like from that position, what kind of difference can he really make?
Right.
To make it worthwhile. So yeah, it was really just more of a shot in the dark. I feel like from the fire to get something going than anything.
All right, I'm going to read this. A complete list of all major league rebrandings in the history of Chicago sports. This tweet was courtesy of MP Sever. The list goes 1986 was the last one. That was the Black Hawks changing into the Blackhawks. It was 2 words. Black Hawks changed into 1 word, Blackhawks. 1922, the Chicago Staleys changed to the Chicago Bears. In 1903, the Chicago White Stockings changed into the White Sox. And in 1903, the Chicago Orphans changed into the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, that's probably for the better.
So those are history of name changes. And now we have Chicago Fire, of course, entering the idea. And you hear Don Garber parroting it, really seeming to support it. If you really read between the lines, as I am, I don't know, maybe you guys have more information. You guys can't comment on certain things, or maybe you don't, whatever, it can. But it just seems like Don Garber already knows what's going to happen and that the Fire are gone. They're going to rebrand. A new name is coming in with the new Soldier Field thing. He didn't even, Marty pointed this out. He did not even refer to the Fire as the Fire during the entire time he was answering questions about him. So what's going on with the Soldier Field move, which was confirmed by Garber as well?
Yeah, well, I don't think they've, at least from what I'm getting, that they've decided anything on the name for sure yet.
Mm-hmm.
Last I've heard, they've also bantied around keeping the Fire name and then changing the sort of prefix to some sort of derivative of Chicago that isn't exactly the TV show. So I don't think they've made it
Chicago Fuego.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Fuego Chicago.
Yeah, I don't think they've made Chicago City Fire or some. Who knows? I don't think they've. I don't know that they've made any sort of decision.
Right.
Final decision yet.
But they're paying some company millions of dollars, and the company is going to, of course, want to be like, hey, we did something, change the name. We earned our money.
Right. Yeah.
You think
you're gonna bring in a consultant to say, yeah, by the way, just do what you've been doing. So,
right.
Yeah. I mean, you've got you've got a 21-year history now with the name Chicago Fire.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll share some of my. I've got a piece in the Athletic coming up. That kind of goes over the history of Toyota Park, the history of the Fire, and how we've gotten to this point, how Soldier Field is in play. But sports and sports fandom is generational. Now MLS has 20 years. They've got a generation of fans that have grown up with the team, with the league. The Fire have grown up almost since day one with the name. So they have a one generation now of fans that have grown up with the team and the name and the tradition and everything that goes along the history, whether it's good or bad, the first 10 years, the last 10 years. Now to go back and say, well, we have screwed up the last 10 years. We're going to change the name because we need a clean start. Just flies in the face of all of that. So when you look at, Peter Wilt kind of explained where tradition, honor, and passion came from and how they've kind of tried to live up to those three words. But if you look at that from a name change standpoint, you're changing tradition if you change name. So what you're basically saying is the emotion goes out the window, and people made and I pointed out that Garber was more interested in data and numbers than he was in emotion, when sports fandom is basically an emotional attachment to uniforms, to a team, to a city. That's basically what fandom is.
The trend is nostalgia.
That's right. It just it flies in the face of all of that. So I mean, to go back and change it's just kind of MLS saying, well, tradition, honor, passion are three words that I'm going to slap on a piece of merchandise for you to buy. It doesn't matter. We'll just change it next year and you'll still buy it. So, I mean, it might look good on some marketing companies.
This reeks of corporate.
Pieces of, on a piece of paper from a marketing company that says, hey, if we can change it to Chicago United FC, you'll increase your part of the attraction of some of the new MLS teams that come in and via expansion is that they are new. They're an expansion team. Everything's exciting. Everything's brand new. Maybe they're trying to artificially recreate that with a new name.
But
and
they won't. Stadium. They don't have new facilities. They won't have new training stuff. They won't have anything new. In fact, we're even talking about, they don't even have half of a core of a team. And you don't need that. I mean, obviously, you could start up a whole new team like LAFC did, but the Fire actually really can't do that because they have been a team these last 20 years. It's like they're trying to ignore the fact that they were a team this year and the year before, and they're trying to go into next year acting like, oh, we're going to be expansion team. No, you've been a team for 21 years. And in fact, the people of Chicago know you.
It's a gimmick is basically what it is. And it's a gimmick that's going to wear out after 6 months, and it's definitely going to wear out if they don't win.
Oh man, you know what? It's going to be an awful, awful move if they don't win and they try to do this. Sorry, Juan.
Yeah, no, sorry. I just wanted to throw in just a little bit out there, and I mean, Guillermo knows this a lot better than I do. I've been here only for a little bit, but on Friday's show, actually, my co-host Ernesto kind of brought up a good point in relation to what you guys were talking about. Is that okay? Obviously you have your core fan base, of course. Then you have those who, who are aware of the team, casuals, if you will, who know the name. And then you have, the general sports Chicago audience, fan base. And, the conclusion we came up with is that not just, the tradition, I agree wholeheartedly, like the whole tradition, fandom, emotion, absolutely. But if you think of it, from a marketing standpoint, if you're trying to, really push your way into the city, into the consciousness of the people within the city, the sports fans within the city of Chicago by being in the city, at least as in Soldier Field, if you change the name, because if you keep the Chicago Fire, you're gonna have to sell that name, a 21-year-old name and colors and badge, to a new audience as it is. If you change the name, then you're gonna have to re-educate everyone else who was already in.
And there's no history now, and it's just nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing behind it.
Exactly.
Do they take away the star too? Well, I don't have it on my jersey, but
yeah. It's totally. I feel like it's totally counterproductive to what you're trying to do. If you're the Fire, if you're really trying to make waves in the city, if you're really trying to get your name out there in the consciousness of the casual Chicago sports fan who may not even know what the Chicago Fire is, besides maybe the TV show or the actual Great Chicago Fire, then you're doing yourself a huge disservice. You're really like shooting yourself in the foot if you have to be like, oh, by the way, used to be the Chicago Fire, but now we're this. So just make sure you make that note in your head. By the way, those who've been following the team and those who want to get back into it, it really makes no sense to me, any way you look at it.
Yeah, and we know there are fans and people, potential fans out there who don't care about the name as well. And,
yeah, true.
But again, do you want to market to the fans who don't care about the first 20 years of the team and the history, and sort of eschew the people who have been here through the high time and low time in order to sort of cater to the millennials that are going to allegedly pack Soldier Field?
All right. Yeah. Do these guys are they just watching Field of Dreams on repeat and just like if you rebrand it, they will come. And he's got that playing in his head on repeat. I got some good comments here. Nate saying, I grew up playing rec soccer in Alabama. Our team name was the Fire.
Man. Shout out.
Our team name was the Fire. All the rec teams were named after MLS teams at the time. Playing as a Fire team member drew me to the Chicago Fire, and I followed them loyally ever since I started watching MLS. If they take away the Fire name, it could alienate me and other fans in similar positions.
That's the generational aspect of sports fandom I'm talking about. They've spent 20 years now building that name, and now MLS is to the point where you have that generation of fans ready to hand down everything that they've experienced to that next generation, and part of that is gone if you change the name. By the way, if they change it to Chicago United, I'm going to pitch a TV show to NBC about airline pilots at O'Hare.
Okay, no, let's work on that right now. So Chicago United, you fly into, you could use both airports. There's drama happening at O'Hare. There's drama happening at Midway, and then
all the SEO searches.
And then you have a time machine element where you go back in time to Meigs Field, and then you have Soldier Field in the backdrop. Bam, we've written the show. Okay.
Oh my God.
There you go. We're starting to wind down here, boys. It's been an awesome podcast. Everybody in the comments, everybody in the live chat, thank you so much for coming. Sorry I've missed quite a few comments. It's of course we're trying to answer as many as we can. It's madness in here. I got a couple comments from Reddit ahead of time. This one I didn't know what to make of it. But how can the Fire get fans or supporters out like Inter Miami already has? Their team hasn't even played a game yet. So we can't say that they're winning, but they're attracting supporters. Is this all just made up advertising for Inter Miami, or do they already have a big fan base like LAFC and Atlanta United?
But I think it's comparing apples to oranges though, because this is a new franchise. Again, like this isn't
Well, Miami Fusion were there.
Oh yeah, but I mean, how long ago was that? But
98.
Like it's a different kind of it's a different kind of enthusiasm, a different kind of emotional attachment that they have. This is a new team that, like LAFC, we're building something new here. We want to be part of it. I feel like this is it's a different case, a different a different scenario that Inter Miami is facing. They're trying to build a fan base from scratch. Chicago Fire are not. Chicago Fire are just trying to bring more people to who they already have, who they've collected now for the last couple of decades. That's kind of what my impression is of that question.
And then they're going to burn everything
know,
else that they've already
I said, the expansion in MLS is a different animal now, because now you're able to build that anticipation. There's an established league. There are established stars. You're on TV now. People see you. So you look at Atlanta, you see Seattle, you see Portland, you see stadiums that are filled now. So now that excitement is sort of generated in the communities that are trying to buy into MLS, and you can't artificially create that in a place like Chicago by just slapping a name into a stadium that you've already played in and left because you couldn't draw. So, Inter Miami, sure, they're going to have fans. And Orlando City has drawn fans. I said this on Twitter the other day. A couple of years, that excitement is gone. Now you get a team like Orlando City, who still has some traction there locally, still has a pretty decent fan base, but you have a 10-year stretch where you're just absolutely abysmal. And where is that fan base?
Yep.
You need to win at least a little bit.
Something.
Yeah.
Especially early on.
Exactly. It's as simple as this. And again, we always go back to this. Like, Guillermo, you tweeted about this the other day too, and it is about winning. We heard it from Arne Whistler, the owner of the Red Stars, before the World Cup welcome back. He says, I asked him, is winning the number one factor? And I'm kind of changing gears a little bit in Red Stars maintaining their momentum as far as interest. And he says, look, Chicago is about winning. Chicago loves winners, and to stay in the consciousness of Chicago fans, you have to win. Absolutely. Because if you don't win, and he actually referenced the Fire in this quote. He said, look at the Fire. We love the Fire, but they haven't won, in a while, and it's reflected in the fan base. And like he kind of put it exactly how it is in that one quote. He talked about the Red Stars, but that applies to the Fire and, I mean, any franchise, really, any sport in Chicago.
They don't have to look as far as, I'm sorry to interrupt, the Chicago Wolves. The Chicago Wolves, the reason that they carved out a niche for themselves in the city of Chicago is because they won cups.
Well, that's because the Blackhawks were horrible.
And the Blackhawks were horrible. They were so bad. And the so you're absolutely right. But they won cups, and they were winners.
But you look at where they're at now, and yes, Bridgeview is a problem now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, they are not relevant within the market. And it's not because of the name. Bridgeview is a problem. The name is not resonating because they just haven't done anything the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is a byproduct of not being competitive. I mean, I don't know that you need you just need to spend millions of dollars in marketing to figure that out.
We could sum up their biggest moves in the last 10 years in two factoids. They got Cuauhtémoc Blanco. They got Bastian Schweinsteiger.
I have a manifesto that's coming coming up at the Athletic that I'm sure you'll be interested in reading. I don't know what form it'll take, but
really looking forward to it.
I got a couple more questions here for you, boys, and we'll get out of here. Juan is awesome, and it sucks that he's not at the Tribune anymore. I really enjoyed his Copa America tweets, and I hope he gets picked up by The Athletic or another publication soon.
Oh, boy.
I really liked his coverage of the Fire, and I miss his after-game dispatches. I'd like to hear more from Juan about the coaching culture officer thingy. We already talked about it. And any insights he has into what's going on with the coaching situation and front office move to the city. I think we already talked about it. So we've already answered that question.
I think, just really
sure.
quick. I'll say there's a lot of talk. I'll put it that way. Like, I'll say there's a lot of talk within the club in every which direction. Like, a lot of speculation, a lot of opinions being bandied about. But nothing like as far as like actual concrete like decision making or anything like that. Technically, I'm still with the Tribune, I guess. But I got you though, and I do miss the videos. Definitely, I miss doing those. So yeah, thanks for that.
Nice. If you said I was talking with Peter Noack, you said if you sit in the middle of the street, you're going to get hit by both sides of the cars.
Yep.
So careful for that. Looking forward, as always, to hear what Guillermo has to say. Same commenter, by the way. Looking forward, as always, to hear what Guillermo has to say about the rebranding rumors. I think we kind of talked about that. Why we're not this we did not talk about. Why we're not fielding a U19 team for only one season. What happened there? This U19 business. And Damian Lass is gone.
Yeah, well, I'm also I'll be writing about the development academies and the sort of the competing outlets across the city of Chicago.
Yeah, you can save a bunch of that for your article. We'll tease it here.
Yeah. I mean, the U19, they're still fielding.
Subscribe to The Athletic.
U17.
Subscribe.
Yeah. They're still fielding U16, U17, and under. So the academy hasn't gone away altogether. They're just and I'm not sure what the reason is they're not fielding U19. And it seems to me that if you're not fielding U19, the only real logical reason for not doing so is that you're fielding a USL team, but they're not doing that either. So why they're taking a year off from U19, I don't know. I'm sure that that question will be asked of Nelson Rodriguez the next time he's available, and I can't even speculated what the answer to that would be at this point.
It makes me wonder about. It's hard for me to say, but it makes me wonder if people are not paying attention. How are you missing this? How is this part of the plan? It doesn't make sense. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. You guys don't have to comment on it. It's just rhetorical.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I don't know, but Guillermo, do you know, like, what about the future of Damian Lass? Because
I mean, that's up in the air.
But Lass feels like the logical. I feel like with this move, it's like the next logical step. If you're not gonna have a team, it's just you need to lock that guy up right away.
Yesterday.
Yeah. But maybe they feel like Lass wasn't going to stick around. Maybe he had eyes on playing elsewhere, and some of that's still up in the air. So I would imagine that some of the guys that would have been U19 are going to find a home with the other U19 academies that in the Chicago area. Some of that is complicated because players have to make choices on travel and how far away and how much money they want to spend. So it's very complicated at the academy level. It's not. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I would love to hear an explanation about having 19 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested in hearing what Guillermo and Juan think needs to happen for the Fire to make the playoffs. We already covered that.
Yeah.
And what they think the future holds for the team. I feel like we kind of covered that. The future is
who knows?
Mysterious.
Really, who knows?
I mean, there's a lot of mystery going into next year's first year of Soldier. Not first year. What return to Soldier Field?
I mean, like clearly, like there's like literally question marks like up and down the entire organization. So really, who in the world else?
Also, any insight into what happened with Wooten, Andrew Wooten? Why do we keep missing these signing opportunities? I'm sorry.
I kind of get the impression that was never really a serious pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up in Philadelphia.
Yes, who's killing the league right now over in Eastern Conference anyway. Finally, ask Guillermo when he's going to write that book about the inside operations of the Chicago Fire and all the years he's been covering them. If anyone could write that book, it would be him.
Yes, I second that question.
When's it coming, Guillermo?
Publishers call me.
He's got he's working on the manuscript right now.
I probably have a good chunk of that coming up in that Athletic article. So,
hey, Guillermo, that's actually not a bad idea though to put a little compendium together, maybe a little Chicago Fire book, something in the future to think about, something like what Mark Lazarus did for the Blackhawks.
Yeah, I would.
Or what Sandalo did for the city of Chicago, I think.
It has crossed my mind. Put it that way.
Heck yeah, that'd be awesome. You heard it here first, guys. Guillermo's book is on the way. What is the deal with Chicago Fire? We already answered this. Enrod shuts down U19 for not saying that there's not enough talent in the USL team. Is the U.S. soccer talent in and around Chicago mediocre, or are the Fire mediocre in getting them into the academy? That sounds like
there's talent in Chicago here, and I think the Fire do a pretty decent job of identifying it. But there are competing academies, and you want the best players are going to go gravitate toward the MLS academies at this point. Now this new structure is going to ensure that the best players end up at the MLS academies.
What new structure are you referring to?
Well, how the absence of U19 works into that structure is a whole other question. But there is a lot of talent in the Chicago area that hasn't been tapped to its fullest potential yet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll just add into just in talking with some directors from academies, most who are not part of the U.S. soccer system, that there is in some areas a disconnect between academies and the Fire, because there is I don't know how prevalent this is, and this is just like again a few people that I've talked to as well, that there's some unhappiness with with the fact that the Fire have brought in a lot of players who were developed mostly by local academies, who they I guess claim as their own, maybe, or they just kind of poach from those academies when they they have a chance to take different routes. So there's that aspect is also part of this whole equation to an extent, a little bit in some of the academies, mostly like I said, those who are not part of the U.S. soccer development system.
Yeah, I mean, part of that problem is that some of the lower, not lower level, just teams that aren't part of that development system, you have talented players, but again, those players are having to foot the bill to get through those systems, and you can't do that in a lot of cases, and that unfortunately ends up killing a lot of potential.
Yeah, that's true.
This is a comment. What's our first goal? New coach, new GM, or new front office? That's a hard one. You guys don't have to answer.
Oh man.
If we kind of talked about this, if the Fire are open for business, these are all Reddit comments or the other comments from our fans. If the Fire are open for business, why is no business taking place except for Mo Adams basically and the other deal that happened? Probably because no, I don't want to read that.
Man, if you don't want to read it, man, it must be like something. It must be
no, it just veered off into some hardcore negativity, and I try to keep that segmented or whatnot, contained to a degree.
I mean, I think like to that question, like I'll throw in what I know so far. There's been business talked about for sure. Nikolic has been talked about with other teams.
Katai
is also. I don't know how concrete anything's been for Katai that I know. I don't know if Guillermo, if you know something about that, but I know for Nikolic and for Marcelo specifically, there's been definitely more business talked about, if you will, as far as potential moves for them leaving the club. Besides that, again, the whole the European defensive midfield or defensive midfielder in Europe, that was the other part. But as far as of course, getting actual moves done in or out, I mean, we've seen two.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, there's a day left. Maybe there are teams that get down to the wire and they feel like they need something, and maybe there's a match. But a lot of what has been offered have been other teams sort of looking to dump off onerous large contracts that they don't want to take on, and you don't want to do that either. So
Nikolic for Pity Martinez.
Oh my God.
I'll take it. It's lopsided as heck, but I'm just throwing some punts out there.
But Guillermo's right though. Like, look, the deadline day always has 24 hours too. So
it doesn't close. What time does it close tomorrow?
Midnight.
Midnight.
Yep.
So we got an hour left tonight and 24 hours left tomorrow, basically.
Right. Indeed.
But you'd have to wonder what you've got. David Osted sitting on the bench. He doesn't want to be there. They
Wasting away. He should be starting.
Raheem Edwards doesn't want to be there. What are they going to do with him? So,
wow.
Yeah, and Raheem Edwards has been pretty much almost ostracized from the team.
Wow.
So yeah, like that's a good point. I didn't think about that, but those two, like something's gotta give with those two.
And if you don't trade off those assets, what are you doing? Even if it's just for pennies on the dollar, I mean, at this point, you kind of
you get into the off season, you don't pick up their option, and they're gone. So
guess what? Those pennies will help out later on because right now they're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Right now, anyway.
MLS funny money. Yeah.
Funny money. All right, we're entering into the last few questions here. Everybody in the comments, everybody in the live chat, everybody listening after the fact, smash that like button. Leave your comments after the fact on the show. Subscribe to Spitting Fire. We're available on so many ways now. We're now on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. I don't know, some other ones. Go to Anchor. There's like 7 ones listed there, but not our Google Play one. We're also on YouTube, of course. So you got a million ways to listen to Spitting Fire podcasts after the fact. Spotify, I heavily recommend, and Google Play myself. So that's out of the order. That's out of smash the like button, blah, 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 blah. And the last couple questions, fun stuff. If you could change one thing or multiple things about soccer, the game, guys, Guillermo, Juan, if you could change something about the game, what would you change? I will go first. I would love, and I threw this out to Lavelle, and I threw it to Peter. Lavelle loved it. Peter Nowak hated it. The idea was more than 3 subs. I say you should be allowed to use your entire coterie of subs. It's a one-time use sub, of course, still, but you get to use, say you have 8 subs on the bench, you could use all 8 if you wanted to. But hey, if you run out, if somebody gets injured after you use your A sub, you're out of luck.
Yeah, I don't know if I like it more than 3 subs.
No, I don't either.
You guys both don't?
I think it's fine as it is. Like, and I like the 4 sub in extra time. I think that's perfect.
The reason I like it is because I feel like there are too many players nowadays that are sitting on the bench. So many players' careers are starting to get squandered on the bench. It's the biggest player pool we've ever had. And how many of these guys are just loading up their minutes on the bench? And if you take the governor off and allow the more subs, my theory was that, make it a little bit more playing time.
Okay.
But Peter was saying, it's going to mess up tactically all the plans, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, of course, there's arguments against it.
Yeah, that takes some of the tactics away and some of the
but what if that opens up goals? What if the chaos opens up for more goals? That's what I'm saying. Hey, MLS, think about it.
Sure. Do we just want to turn every game into the All-Star game then?
5-4 score lines?
Yeah, basically. I don't know. Like, honestly, like the one change I kind of wanted in soccer already happened.
What is it?
VAR.
Yeah.
VAR.
So, yeah.
It's been going well.
They got to perfect it, but
yes,
that's what I wanted to see.
I think it's going well enough, though. I think it's definitely proved its worth at where it's at. But so you guys have no changes you'd make to the beautiful game.
Nope.
None.
That's why it's beautiful.
Yeah, I kind of like it the way it is. I'm with Juan on VAR. I think if they can get it corrected at some point and at some point figure out how to get lasers on the goal line to figure out if a ball has crossed the goal line.
That
would be nice.
A recent change was the kickoff. They did change that. It used to have 2 touches, and now that's a new rule. You only have to do you could kick off. You don't have to go forward. You could just. That was the first big significant change in soccer for years. I think another. What about those times where it's like you get that weird red card in the box and you're like, I wish there wasn't a red card here.
Well, that's what VAR's for.
Yep. Good point.
Yeah, I'll say though another one too that I did like. Now you mentioned the new changes is that subs can actually come off anywhere at any point around the field. That we don't have to wait like a half an hour for them.
Oh yes, that would be That would be
referee to escort them out for opponents to yell at them and insult them to get out of the field.
Yeah.
For them to get a standing ovation and applaud the fan base. Now they can just get out of the next touchline and that's it, and it's over.
Right. Just get off the field.
Yeah, exactly.
I got Northwood's Dan clocking in saying extra time equals extra balls.
Yeah.
For
Okay,
instance,
right.
this is impossible. For instance, 2 minutes of extra time means 2 balls on the field. Well, what happens when a ball goes in the net? Do you stop play? What happens if the ball goes out of bounds? Do you stop play?
Just get rid of the off. Just get rid of offside.
Get rid of offside. Now that is an insane rule.
You talk about parking the bus the other way. Yeah.
Yes.
I thought there was a time when offside did not exist. Of course, there had to be.
Offside didn't exist at one point.
For a while. Yeah, I got inverting.
It was kind of madness.
I got inverting the pyramid right in front of me.
Yeah.
Great book.
Great book.
No offside. Nemanja Nikolic would never have to cross midfield ever.
Get a couple more goals. Wow.
Nikolic should be the happiest guy.
Yeah.
I think that's about. Oh, I had one final one. We already talked about Chicharito versus Guardado. I also threw an Ochoa for us. I think I would love to bring in Chicharito. If I had all the monies, I'd bring in Chicharito. If I had more monies, I'd bring in Chicharito and Ochoa. If I had all the monies, I'd bring in all 3 of them.
Well, the question is, if those 3 guys aren't available, then what's the move next year for 2020? What's going to fill Twitter Park or Soldier Field? What's going to invigorate the masses to get excited about moving into a downtown stadium?
You know who would have? Wayne Rooney, but he's going back to freaking England.
Yeah, I mean, with Wayne Rooney, a big name.
That type,
Wayne
though.
Rooney. Yeah, that
type is what I'm saying. The generational.
Yeah, but again,
Chicago wants a winner.
Chicago wants a winner. I think Wayne Rooney would have, in the same fashion that Schweinsteiger did here, that sort of newness, that fresh car smell would have worn off without a consistent winner.
Yeah.
So, and you take it, unless you go into all of a sudden become Atlanta United and start spending $15-20 million transfers for guys like Miguel Almiron, then you take a different tack. So,
Guillermo, I'm going to slightly disagree with you here in the fact that I think that of the 2 DPs, Schweinsteiger versus Rooney, I would much rather have Rooney. I think he's been a much greater success for MLS. I think he's dominated MLS in a way that we all expected Schweinsteiger to do. Schweinsteiger's skill set just dominates in a different way, and it's just not as offensive as say Wayne Rooney's. And I think that Wayne Rooney would have been a far more successful DP in Chicago than Sebastian Schweinsteiger would be. And if he was here, like you're saying, the luster wore off because Bastian Schweinsteiger doesn't score goals.
Wow.
He doesn't score goals. He doesn't score goals. He never takes shots. He doesn't do anything except play out of the back because he's a coach who plays him in the back in a position he's not fit for. Meanwhile, Wayne Rooney scores goals, gets goals, is leading this team, is putting this team in playoff contention, has the team on his back. Does Bastian Schweinsteiger have this team on his back?
No.
So that is why I say Wayne Rooney is the way better DP and would have been a great more success in Chicago.
Okay, but also,
fair enough.
That's my argument.
Wayne Rooney's not playing center back, so
right. But like I said, he's also not getting misplayed by his coach. So I mean,
that's some part of it at least,
right. And I apologize for I almost slipped up with a little swear word there.
I mean, tell us how you really feel.
Let's see. Ice cream nachos would draw a crowd from what I've heard.
Yes.
And the final question, boys, the last one. Would you buy a 28-year-old James Rodriguez today for $20 million if you were Andrew Hauptman, Joe Mansueto? You pony up 20. Hey, you know what? I'm going to give this is an investment. Here's $20 million plus whatever you need to sign his salary. Trade Nikolic for a ball. I don't care what you got to do. Just get my DP here. $20 million, play the salary. Is that a guy you could potentially flip in a year to Europe for 30, 40 million?
I would fly to Madrid and I would drive him to the airport in Madrid, fly with him to Chicago, drive him from O'Hare to Soldier Field, introduce myself, be his translator,
start hunting his apartments for him,
take his luggage. That's my boy, man. It's not even a question. Like,
yeah.
it's just my boy.
Yeah,
I mean, realistically,
Yeah, of course he's not coming to MLS.
Sure.
But if he was willing to sign, do you think that's a smart fiscal business decision? Do you think you could flip him for more money if you signed him for 20 million? If you signed him at a cut rate place,
that's the type of ambition. That's the type of ambition it's going to take to draw attention to a move to Soldier Field and then draw. But again, at 20 years old, say you buy him for 20 million. He plays in MLS for 2 years. He's 30. You're not going to flip him for $40 million.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's just at that age where it just misses.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's more. He's 28 years old. I think it's more the perception of MLS. Yeah, that could hurt him. Really.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a Champions League level player. I mean.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, of course, if you do it, in a heartbeat. But yeah, realistically, I think you would do more. You might hurt his value more just by bringing him in.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah, that's what I was kind of angling towards that, or at least that's what I kind of was thinking.
It's a double-edged sword in a way.
Because who would buy it if nobody's going to buy him now for the cut rate price that I think that Real Madrid's offering? Although he has expensive salary, who's going to buy him in a year or two off of MLS?
I mean, the big rumor is Inter Miami.
Yeah, so he could be coming.
That's the big one, apparently. I mean, I would hate it, but that's apparently they might be looking into the possibility. Not now, but like you said, maybe in a couple of years if things stay the same.
Yeah, I would think that they've got to go big with who they bring in because they're playing in that Trummy stadium, so they're going to have something other than the facility to draw.
Okay, actually, I had one last question. It's about Soldier Field. What are our thoughts about the Soldier Field move, playing in Soldier Field? I'll lead off because I feel like I have the least significant opinion between you guys. You guys got way better opinions than I do. My opinion is the Soldier Field move is going to stink for fans in going to the stadium and leaving to the stadium. However, being in the stadium for a game, the idea of going to the stadium on the lake, that will be nice and that will be refreshing. And there are going to be good aspects to it. If you could somehow transport the identity of the Monsters of Midway Bears defense onto the Chicago Fire and that Monster of Midway mentality, make your team so feared to be played against, I think that would be beneficial to the move. And tailgating in the parking lot will be a blast, but it'll be maybe a very empty parking lot, depending on how this rebrand and rebuild goes.
Mm-hmm.
Look, at this point in the history of the franchise or where they're at now, moving to downtown and playing in a downtown stadium, whether it's Soldier Field or anywhere else, is a better option than Bridgeview because they've made it so. Mm-hmm. But again,
artificially, you think?
Well, I don't know that it's artificially. They've kind of painted themselves into a corner where this is something they've got to do to resuscitate the franchise. Mm-hmm. If they haven't been able to do it by actually putting a competitive field on the team on the field, so now they've kind of they're going into Soldier Field. They're going to run out of excuses. It's not going to be Bridgeview. It's not going to be the name. You're in Soldier Field. You've got all the millennials in the downtown area on the north side, readily accessible to jump on a train or jump on a bus and get to Soldier Field. So now they've got the onus on them to put a competitive team on the field that's going to draw some traction and draw some attention in Chicago. If they can't do that
in year one,
I don't know. It's got to be in year one. It can't take 2-3 years. It can't be a rebuilding process in the middle of playing in Soldier Field, because to me the thought of playing in Soldier Field is better than the reality of playing in Soldier Field.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say too. Yep. Like the idea of the lake, it's there. You got the cool breeze. You're by the lake. It's cool. But then the reality sets in. It stinks leaving and going because it's so packed and it's just not conducive.
Yeah, and at some point they've got to get out of Soldier Field and find a stadium of their own within Chicago city limits. Mm-hmm. That's the only way this is going to work long term. How long is too long to play in Soldier Field? Is it 5 years too long? Is it 10 years too long? And then if you're in Soldier Field for 10 years, you're almost at the point where the Bridgeview lease would have expired by the time you get your own stadium.
Yep.
So you have to think, what is a long-term goal here? It can't be Soldier Field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Is that about it, boys?
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts that we haven't covered? Anything you guys want to say?
Always enjoy being on.
Always enjoy having you, Guillermo. Thank you very much.
Yeah, same here, man. I appreciate the invite. It's always fun, especially when during these times where it might not be so fun to talk about the what's going on with the Fire, and you're kind of at a loss for what to say about this team. But yeah, no, definitely, and yeah, shout out to everybody in the chat, and
but
as always, thanks for the support.
And we always sort of invariably end up hitting all the negative aspects and going through. But again, the fact that there are people out there that are still passionate enough and angry enough, to care about the Fire, and they care about the name, and they care about losing for 10 years, and they care about Toyota Park and Soldier Field, it should be a good indication to them that there is still the remnants of a core fan base out there that still cares. And they can't ignore that core fan base for the bright lights of potentially bringing in a few more new fans, because those fans will go away once if they replicate exactly what they've done the last 10 years.
And what will happen to that small subset of fans that have been there year in, year out, wooden spoon after wooden spoon?
It'll keep getting smaller until it's just not there.
And that's all it has been. This year, it's even smaller. It's even smaller.
Yeah, it gets smaller every
And
year.
how many people are going to be moving from Bridgeview to Soldier Field of these fans? Because I know people are going to be upset. People are going to be like, why would we even go to Soldier Field? They aren't good. They weren't good here. What makes us think they're going to be good over there?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to draw a new crowd at Soldier Field, but again, that crowd's going to be gone if they're not competitive.
Short-lived. Wow.
Yeah.
It's not looking good right now, boys, but it is very fun to talk soccer with you guys, talk Fire, speculate, try to help these guys move on to the next level.
Always fun.
Always, guys.
Same here.
Much appreciated. Thank you guys for taking the time. Everybody, follow Guillermo. Check out The Athletic. Follow Juan. Check out Second City Soccer, as well as Hoy. I'll have all their links in the description about where to find them and all their stuff. Smash that like button. Share this. Retweets are always appreciated. Check us out and all the other stuff. Anchor, Google Play, all that kind of stuff. Spotify, and all that jazz. We'll see you guys later. Oh, we're on Tune In, whatever that is too. I don't know. We're on loads of stuff. So enjoy. Spread the fire. Fire it down, everybody. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. And music. Boom. The closer.